Juz 21 starts off at verse 46 of Ankabut, instructing the Muslims to not debate with the people of the book except in the best way, before moving on to listing some of the proofs that testify to the truth of the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran, 48 and 49. Then moving on to a brief discourse with the believers at 56, who were then being persecuted in Mecca, inviting them to migrate for the sake of their faith, ending this discourse with the promise of the lofty mansions and running rivers in Jannah. Finally concluding the surah with the promise of the pleasure and guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those who do good. Verse 69. Rum starts with a true prophecy that the Byzantines would eventually be victorious against the Persians, a prophecy the surah describes as a promise of Allah. Verse 6. 17 to 27 speak of some of the most powerful miracles around us. To name a few, the mercy between the spouses, the diversity in language and color, man's sleep, awareness, rest, and tiredness. Verse 30 talks about the concept of fitrah, that everyone is born with the truth of Islam. Verse 41 explains the concept of evil, pain, and suffering in this world. The truth is there for all to see, but the one who turns away, the surah reminds the Prophet ﷺ that it is not in his power to make the blind see or the deaf hear. Verse 53. Luqman then starts praising the righteous and criticizing those that turn away before taking us to Luqman alayhi salam's beautiful advice for his son in verses 12 to 19. He advises him against shirk, reminds him to be good with parents, reminds him Allah is watching, pray, command the right, prohibit the evil, be patient, don't be arrogant, speak with people in a gentle manner. Then concluding the surah with a description of Allah's perfect knowledge. It is only He who knows about the day of judgment, the rain, what's in the womb, man's earnings for tomorrow, and man's place of death. Verse 35. Surah Sajda in 30 verses discusses faith, calling for reflection, be it through the stages of life or the faiths of the earlier communities. The surah describes the believers, how they worship, their reward, contrasted with the stubborn attitude of the disbeliever and their sad end on the day of judgment. Yet, he ignores it all. The surah then ends with a final note to the Prophet. Therefore, leave them alone and wait. They are certainly waiting. Verse 30. Ahzab opens with abolishing the practice of dhihar, adoption, and the institution of brotherhood, the muwaha between the Ansar and the Muhajirun, before moving on to declaring the Prophet's wives as spiritual mothers to all believers. Then there is a reference to the Battle of Ahzab, its details, and the hypocrites at the time. The juz concludes where we see the start of the discussion of the roles, responsibilities, and the duties of our mothers, the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
من أجبت دعاء نوح فانتصر وحملته في فلكك المشحون يا من أحال النار حول خليله روحا وريحانا